mean, along with some wonderful people here today. We have in the studio, it's a full house here today. We have a lot of smiling faces, excited faces, like they have not even fasted today. They are so energetic here, except for me. I'm still getting it together. So we have on the meeting today, we have two wonderful people to join us. We call them the future leaders of our beautiful city. And we have today with us Rhys Brown and Charmaine. They represent their local parties, Labour and Conservative. And we also have a young guest here who's going to be asking them a question or two. So I'm going to be joining with them very shortly, as soon as they come on. So in the meantime, we're going to be discussing with you some of our local issues that are going on here with the many different areas. We'll be discussing with them some political issues, the fine details, the future, how we're going to shape the future with all these young people in our city, right? We have a lot of young people here. Now, our young population in the country is exceedingly high, proportionally to the rest of us in the country. So today, I'm happy to join with Charmaine. And good evening to you, Charmaine. How are you today? Are you well?
Hello.
How are you?
Yes, good, thank you.
Great. And we also have today in the studio with us Rhys Brown. And how are you today, Rhys?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So a year's flown by, isn't it, since we were last year?
It is. It's gone really quickly, though, hasn't it, Zed?
Very quick. It's like from March to April, we've gone through a year, and it's a blink of an eye. We call
There's
it
a lot gone on as well, isn't there?
Call it the COVID year. So, guys, what have you been all up to then during the last year?
For me, it's just been busy with COVID-related casework with local residents. Then obviously last sort of 2 weeks, everyone's been busy with Ramadan. It's been a tough year, I think, for everyone, a tough sort of environment, really. Lots of people have been coping with losses, lots of people have been coping with illness, and then obviously all the sort of resultant impacts of COVID, jobs, working from home. It's just been a very busy year. So yeah, been very occupied, basically, the last year.
Of course, Charmaine, you have been a councillor now for almost 2 years now, isn't it, in the city of Leicester, representing your ward. If you could just let our listeners know, remind them exactly which ward you're representing.
Yeah, so I'm a councillor for Stonygate ward alongside Councillor Talukdar and Councillor Masters in Leicester South.
Leicester South, yeah. Now, I recall when you were campaigning at that time, 2 years ago, and you're probably one of the youngest councillors in the city.
I wasn't the youngest. I don't want to give away my age, but
one of the youngest.
Let's be honest, the average age of people participating in politics is higher than any other probably employment forum. So it's not hard to be one of the youngest, but also I'm not the youngest. So there's a couple of other councillors who are much younger than I am, and they're doing a fantastic job as well.
Great, we need to get them on as well, because
definitely need more young people.
We have a lot of things to discuss with the future. We call you all guys the future, and Rhys, yourself, you're also pretty young in your party, because I've met a lot of members in your party, Rhys, and you are the new generation, I call it.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of young people as well, Zed. I go out and about, I speak to lots of different people, and our membership in Leicester is as young as it's ever been. It's as big as it's ever been. It's growing massively. So people are really interested in what we're doing. They've been let down by 50 plus years, really, of Labour council, like councillors from across the city.
Oh, we
really
were going
let down by tax rises.
Yeah.
Currently the council is snatching green spaces from people across the city.
Rhys, I was coming to that point of 50 years. You beat me to it. I think you've been busy doing some serious research here, Rhys. Now,
Well, You know, 50 years is a very long time for anybody to run the council.
Of course,
Again, without giving away my age, Sir Peter Salisbury was on the council before I was even born. That kind of shows how long he's been there. It's really depressing that one group of people have had such a long run.
So, Rhys, we got to tell people, first of all, somebody sent me a text already that you're with Labour or are you with the Conservatives? So that's straight off.
So I'm the deputy chair of the Conservative Party in Leicester, so I'm definitely not in the Labour Party. I'm deputy chair of the Conservative Party.
So you see people are listening in and sending in a text already, right? So, Rhys, the 50-year issue that you mentioned, it goes way back since 1972. Now, my question is that why has it taken you 50 years to make an impact?
Well, unfortunately, Zed, I've not quite been around that long. We are starting to make an impact, though. You know, I think people are really upset of what's gone on in Leicester. You know, we saw the longest lockdown in the country in Leicester, thanks to the Labour administration here. We saw council tax rises by 5%.
No, we mustn't go down that road, us and them. Charmaine, 50 years, you're part of the furniture here, aren't you, at 50 years?
Well, again, like Rhys, I'm a newcomer to politics, but the reason that Labour have been in power for 50 years is because the people in Leicester want Labour in power in their local government. That's a democracy, and that's how it works. It's a bit like if I was complaining about the Tories being in national government for the last 10, 15 years. We can't do anything about that aside from put forward the alternative vision. This is what the national electorate voted for. So it is not by some subversive method by which Labour are in power. It is because the people want a Labour local government. And with regards to the lockdown, we've done everything we can to work with the government with regards to the lockdown, but ultimately that decision was not ours. Ultimately, that decision was the national government's, and the entire handling of the COVID pandemic has been at the hand of the national government. So it's all well and good to try and divert attention and locally try and blame the local government. But the reality is, when it comes to national policies, like anything to do with a pandemic, COVID-19, that entirely lays with the government, the national government, and they are entirely responsible.
Here we have another text here, right? They're asking a question. Rhys, this one is for you. Is that in the cabinet, in the complete, all the number of councillors in the city, we're talking city now, not county, how many Conservative councillors is there?
Well, Zed, we've had a difficult kind of last 10 years, really. As you know, we've not currently got any councillors, but I'm hoping a week today, or a week tomorrow, because the count's tomorrow, we will have our first councillor in Abdul Osman, who's standing in the North Evington by-election. Is a really, really good candidate. And we've had a really good reception on the doorstep there. So I'm hoping that in a week's time, the answer is 1.
Well, that's what they call... you got to keep your fingers crossed. That's what I got to say, Rhys. Whether it happens or not, I can't be the one here to say yes or no. But it is worrying, really, to me that 50 years and over that period of time, that there has not been a serious penetration of any impact at all by that. But we have to work on it, together, all of us, between the Labour and the Conservatives. But here today, we're not here to sort of have a banter, cussing each other off, anything like that. We got to focus on the future now to see how we're going to shape a better community by all of us working together, whether we are Labour or we are Conservatives. Because if we start bantering with each other, they've done this, they've done that, they haven't done this, they're supposed to have done that, we're not going to shape a better tomorrow. So we're all here looking at the future and discussing some of your policies and some of your policies, Charmaine, in the city, what you've roadmapped going ahead. There are some issues that the listeners have been talking to me about, which I'm going to relay to you, such as the forthcoming parking levy. Charmaine, if you can explain that to us, a little bit.
Sorry, what do you mean by the parking levy?
There was a lot of press that there will be charges for businesses who are parking their cars when they go to work. A lot of talk going on about that. So is there any progress on that?
I'm afraid I haven't actually got an update for you on that. If I'd have known in advance, I'd have made sure that I did, get an update for you on that. But I'm not entirely sure as to what you're referring to. Is it a specific?
There's a levy, a parking levy charge that when businesses are going to work, they have to park their cars. And I don't know if you have any news, there's any update on that.
It was in your manifesto in 2019. You want to...
Yeah, and if I had known in advance, I'd have gotten you an update on that, but I don't have an update to you to relate to you at the moment.
We'll skip
that. Is it a policy you support?
Sorry?
Is it a policy you support?
To what?
To make businesses pay to park outside their own business?
I think it depends on the individual circumstances. So I would have to look at this individual plan and in detail myself and give you an update once I've had a look at it.
So great, we'll pick up on that another time. Now, Rhys, what I want to ask you is, what is the POA for the Conservatives going forward? POA here at the radio means Plan of Action. Going forward, apart from this potential one councillor, we want to know where we are going. How are they going to penetrate into the system at the moment?
We have got a plan, Zed, you're right. We've got a plan which has got to be a jobs first plan. Unlike Sharman's Labour Party, we really want to put jobs at the front of everything we do. So we won't be punishing businesses for parking their cars outside their business. We won't be implementing 5% tax rises everywhere. We won't be charging people extra to rent a house, a basic principle of life. We want to make sure that Leicester's affordable for everybody and there are good employment here in Leicester for everybody. We saw the stories in the last summer about the factories, 50 years of a Labour council, and we've got stories in papers about factories and slave labour. We want to be better than that. We think Leicester can be better than that, and
I agree.
That's why we're looking at a jobs first recovery from this pandemic.
I'd be really interested to know how you're going to do that with a background of Tory government cuts with local authority funding. So it sounds like an ambitious plan, but you need money to implement these plans. And with a decade of cuts from the national government when it comes to local authorities, I'd be interested to know how you're going to manage that. At the end of the day, the local tax rises have been implemented because we've had no choice. We have had no choice because real-term funding for local authorities have drastically gone down. So what alternative is there for us to ensure that we provide the best frontline services for our residents? We have no choice but to increase local taxation. That is the only policy available to hand, given that the national government has effectively more than halved local authority funding.
Right, always, guys, there's always an issue here where national government is the Conservatives and local government is the Labour, so there's always going to be some disagreements here. And
Zed, can I just have a response to that, please? Because I think it's really interesting that Sharman's here talking about local government cuts, and at the precise minute she's doing that, the city mayor is currently voting for his own pay rise. So he's getting a pay rise of over 4%, but we have to charge people.
Yeah, I think that all workers, specifically workers in the pandemic, deserve to be paid fairly. And it is a great shame that the Tory government has only chosen to pay nurses an increase of 1%, which is a real terms pay cut. So actually, the Labour Party are in favour of paying workers, especially those that have worked really hard during the pandemic. We're in favour of paying them fairly and adequately. So yeah, I'm happy to disagree with you on that matter.
Do you think Sir Peter Salisbury has worked hard over the past year to get Leicester out of this recovery?
Do you think he's been sunning it up on a holiday?
He spent a lot of time in Brunch.
Of course, guys, steady on now. I'm going to tell you something now. Even if somebody's worked hard, the other one's going to say he's not worked hard. So we won't go down that road, right? So what I want to talk to you about now, we're going to move forward instead of going into a little bit of a banter. So we're going to ask you now about how we're going to shape the future of politics here we've only received a text here that we cannot go on like we have been doing so in the last 100 years. We have to move on with the digital world here, right? And one of our guests here, an aspiring young 19-year-old, is just gasping to ask a question. I'm holding him back. I'm trying to control him, but he's too energetic, right? He wants to ask a question. So can you squeeze one question in? Guys, is okay with you, Rhys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself, please.
So my name is Abu Bakr Siddiq. I'm 19 years old. My question is, what are your plans to tackle homelessness in Leicester?
Am I going first or Rhys?
Let's go for Labour first.
I think there's a lot of the pandemic has brought to light how important it is that everybody, including those that are in homes, are housed adequately. And I think it has brought to light that the fact that the last decade of housing policy has not worked in this country. So we definitely need a revisit to national housing policy, because that informs how we are able to change the reality on the ground locally. So we need an end to right to buy, so that the council, local authorities have enough housing stock to ensure that all of their residents are housed effectively. And we need an increase in funding with regards to house building. The reality is that's just not been enough to satisfy the growth in our cities, and to keep all of our residents housed safely, and especially because of the pandemic, this has been brought to the fore. So the biggest focus needs to be nationally. We need funding, and we need an end to right to buy.
We need some money. That's what she's saying, Rhys. She needs some money. Can we help her, Rhys?
I agree with her in terms of funding. I think I would redistribute the funding in terms of the council. Instead of spending millions, of 15.5 million, for example, on a museum, I would spend a bit more money on helping people at a ground level to ensure that people have got the right support to get off the streets and to get into proper accommodation. You know,
I do agree. I think money does need to be put in accordance with priorities, which is why the billions that have been wasted under test and trace, of taxpayers' money, it really should be an absolute travesty. People should know where their money has been wasted, and it's been allocated to friends of people in power. And that's taxpayer funds. This is not money that the Prime Minister owns himself. This is money that we own as the public. So absolutely, I'm in favour of not wasting taxpayer funds and ensuring that the priorities, which include housing, are financed with those funds instead of being handed out to friends and acquaintances on contracts that actually have actually presented very little with regards to substance for the public.
Just on procurement, seeing as you brought it up, how much do you know about the procurement of the graffiti project outside of the City Council's office?
I actually wouldn't know.
Do you know who got the contract for that from the City Council, the Labour-run City Council?
I'm sure you're going to inform me, Rhys.
A friend of Adam Clark.
And how much was that contract? Please tell me. In billions.
Guys.
Was it?
Steady on now. I'm here to hold the fort now, guys. Look.
I think in respect to this minute contract, I'm actually not informed. So
of course.
I couldn't give you an adequate
Rhys, guys.
And I think it would be appropriate for you to take this up with Adam. We all know the billions that have gone missing with regards to public taxation.
Come
money.
on, guys. This is not a cabinet meeting today. This is not a cabinet meeting. With.
Sorry,
I just find it interesting that Labour like to talk about sleaze and they like to throw all these words around.
Welcome to the world of politics, Rhys. That's how it goes.
Exactly.
Right. So what are we going to do now?
Are they? I think that's the issue.
The thing is, we wouldn't talk about sleaze so much if there
I'm
wasn't
going to give you a solution here, right? When you have these issues and you bring them out in the media, you don't actually, you're lighting fuses like that, you see. So a constructive way is a different way, which is to get the public behind you on issues that you are worried about, that you're concerned about. And then you're not only just one voice, you become hundreds and thousands of voices. So the way forward in our political climate is to know our numbers, right? For example, guys, What's the city population? Who's going to go first? Who's going to go first? Rhys, you want to go first?
I think it's around 100,000, isn't it?
City population, not at all 100,000, right? And what about you, Charmin?
I actually couldn't hazard a guess. I suspect it's higher than that, but
Now,
I
guys,
don't know.
come on. In other programs, they give a £50 prize for if you get it right, you know?
For searching out.
50 quid. Come on, for 50 quid, who's going to tell me what is the city population? Well, I'm
We'll
not.
go more like, what about 400,000?
If you don't get that one right, I'm going to worry about asking you what the county population is.
420,000.
And then you're going to add that up together and see what figure you come up with, right? So, city, guys, shall I put you out? Shall I
Yes,
put you out?
please.
All right. The city population is 357,000, right? And it's on the up. Now it gets even more exciting after the break. After we have a little break, there'll be other questions very similar to the first one. It's all about what we have going on at the moment is what we call it here in the radio. I don't have a clue, right? I don't have a clue. So we are up with the new generation here now, a very, very fast-growing young population. Anyone care to tell me what the stats are? How many young people we have up to the age of 30 years old in the city?
I couldn't tell you. I'm sorry.
Rhys, you want to have a go at that?
I think we've just proved that my guessing skills aren't great.
Great, great. So the young population here are the ones who are going to shape the future of this city. All these changes that we are discussing, Rhys, that we want, Charmaine, we need to connect with these young people in the city like we have never done so before. What are we doing in the world of digitization in the councils and in our national government? You know, guys, Charmaine, you go first. What is a digital plan for the city for the future?
I think I'm not sure exactly what your question's about, but in terms of how
the world is digitizing. Petrol, diesel, all's gonna go out the window. There'll be electric cars. We need charging points. You know, a petrol station will be a thing of the past. People gonna change. That's just one thing. Then we have maybe we have a young lad here after the break. We can ask him these questions because you know these young guys nowadays, Rhys, they got problems with their thumbs and their four fingers. Rhys, because they're all day long they're clicking away on their phone.
The phones.
Yeah, or playing games. So after the break, we're going to engage with some of these youngsters in the city and see what their viewpoints are. Is that a good idea, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is the young population that we need to touch like we have never touched before. Because the politics of the future has got to be not the same as the politics of the last 100 years, where is it red, is it blue, or occasionally is it yellow. So we'll go for a break now, and then we're going to catch up very shortly after the break. We're going to talk more about the diversities in the city, and we're going to talk about the digitization, how we're going to reach out to this population. Guys, are you good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and be on your best behavior.
We'll try.
Let me be the boss. Let me be a Peter Soulsby for the day. So the guy's going to catch up with you very shortly. Don't go away. Okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, we are now back for the second session here at Radio Ramadan on 87.9 FM. So carry on sending your messages in, your text messages on 077-488-55055, or you can call in on 01164 4822-086. So please do that. If you got any questions for Charmaine, she's representing the Labour local council here, and Rhys Brown is representing the Conservatives party here in the city. He's more active in the city than he is in the county. Now we're going to move on now to diversity. Diversity, guys, in our city, how many nationalities do we have?
More guessing.
It must be hundreds. We've got, just in my kids' school, I think there's like up to 40 languages that are spoken, home dialects that are spoken. So I can imagine it must be any number up to 100, probably, perhaps more.
No, languages you're correct on, but they are not 200 diversities. You have to go to London for that. Leicester is less than that, but you're not far away with the 40 languages. If you go along to the inner city schools in the Highfields area, you will meet 40 languages and so on. Now, the issues are that when we say, I don't have a clue, what we are talking about here is that we don't know enough about each other, right, at all. And if we, the immigrant community, has been in this city actively for over 70 years, and we still don't have enough knowledge about each other. And of course, it's a challenge because every year there are new people that come into the city all the time, right? And people are not keeping pace with knowing who's who, where they are coming from, and then we can't deal with the situations if we don't know. So there is a mix of ethnic groups, including the Asian community, African community, and so many other new diversities that are here, the Iraqis, the Kurdish, the Afghanis, the Syrians, the Yemenis. Then to add to that, the Eastern Europeans, right, that are coming from Albania, from Kosovo, from Bosnia. I can go Macedonia, and I can go through a list so long, longer than my arm, guys. So Rhys, what is the plan to deal with all these diversities from your party?
This is something I'm quite keen on, actually. Integration, I don't think in Leicester is at the moment good enough. We've got to improve how we integrate people into different communities and how communities mix with one another. I mean, I think part of the issue that was held in the factories, in the textile factories in Leicester, was the language barriers that we had in play. You know, Leicester has one of the highest populations. You might ask this as a question in a minute, but Leicester has one of the highest populations of non-English speakers in the country. And that's something I think the council at a local level has to deal with urgently, because, you know, we've seen in the pandemic, I mean, I brought it up earlier, one of the reasons we were held back, I think, was the language barriers that we had. A leaflet was sent to everybody in the country, but a leaflet was also sent to everybody in the city. It was only in English. So the first leaflet was.
Yeah, but subsequent drops were then translated in all the main languages. So
they were subsequently, but the one before the local lockdown was only in English. It was only after I brought it up actually to the city council that it changed.
I'm not aware of that being the causal factor. The reality is a lot of the councillors on the city council are actually from BAME backgrounds. So we were inherently aware of the needs of our community. And that is one of the things that we relayed to the council, and the council reacted appropriately. They introduced translated materials, and pretty quickly that was turned around. And most of the sort of written materials that have been issued since then, and online materials, have been provided so that every community has access, regardless of what language they speak.
Of course,
I'm
now
sure you'd agree that it wouldn't have been an issue if a much higher percentage of the city spoke English.
Rhys, now we're going to.
I don't think that's fair, and I think that's borderline sort of
Guys,
against
I got to step in here now. Every time you guys start bantering, I got to step in. If you don't mind, please don't mind the interruptions because we
Ask
got a
some
lot of
questions.
things to ask. And here, Abu Bakr is kicking me under the table because he wants to ask a question. Abu Bakr,
As a younger generation, how would you guys engage with us? Because from our perspective, we're from the generation Swift. So we have the millennials, we got generation Z and Y, and we're
You
from
forgot the
generation
X.
Swift. So X, of course. So we're from generation Swift. Do you guys know what generation Swift is?
guys,
I actually don't. I know X, Z, and Y, but I don't know what.
I know Z and Y, yeah, I'm the same.
So Generation Swift we're the generation that just uses Snapchat, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So that makes the anecdote Swift. So my question is, how do you guys engage with us? Because
right, we got to take a breather here, all of us here, right? And just take a deep breath and say the word swift. Let's do it together. Charmaine, you say it first.
Swift.
And you now Rhys second.
Swift.
Now, let's remind ourselves what he said. What is it again?
So how do you guys engage
what
with
the
us?
S means?
So S is Snapchat, W is WhatsApp, I is Instagram, F is Facebook, and T is Twitter.
Okay, here's a question for you then. Do you, on these platforms, how often do you see any communications coming to your phone?
Hardly at all. We don't hear about anything about political unless it comes down to the letters down our letterboxes of asking to vote for Labour or Conservative. So we really don't get much information about the parties and what good they do for the youth until we have to vote. So my question is, how would you guys engage with us and make us more interested in the politics?
He's hammered a nail in the coffin there, as they say, with that question. Who's going to go first? Rhys, go on.
Yeah, I'm actually quite disappointed you've said that because I've worked over the last kind of 12 months to ensure that people my age, people younger than me, people older than me, could access politics on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We've ensured that our profiles on those platforms have increased, and we're putting Facebook adverts and various other things out there more frequently to different communities to ensure we are reaching different communities more frequently. So, I mean, I'd really like to speak to you about that afterwards, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Before this, I didn't know who you were and like what party you were going for. So I'm Somali. So my question to you is, if you're engaging with the youth, how much Somalis are there in the city?
That's more guessing, and I've not got that figure to hand, but I know that Somalians have got a good population in Leicester, and it's a population that we are trying to work with considerably. So
Charmaine, she will know because they're more closer to her area.
No, unfortunately, I don't. I don't have those facts sort of off the top of my brain to pick out. But I do think this is a really important question because it is the sort of elephant in the room. Many of the policies that are currently being decided by most politicians, and I mean all politicians, Labour, Conservative, Lib Dems, whatever, are decided.
We have
Like we have lost Sharmeen.
I was about to ask whether that was me or you guys.
I think guys, Charmaine will come back in a minute, but here, Rhys, I think there's a future potential politician here sitting opposite me called Abu Bakr.
Yeah, he sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I'd
full
love
of,
to work with him in terms of social media and platforms because we as a party are trying to strive ourselves on being 21st century and
Well, this is-
bringing
we
politics to everybody because I know it has been restrictive in the past. And that's something I want to make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
Well, we need to sort of address these issues with across the board, really. That what his point of view is that there is not enough comms coming from any of the political spheres to this generation. And that's a new one for me because I'm still trying to memorize that Swift. Have you memorized that, Rhys? Yes?
The acronym.
Yeah, it's a new one for me.
Snapchat.
Is that a
WhatsApp.
Radio Ramadan
Snapchat.
exclusive, that one?
WhatsApp, Instagram,
What?
Facebook,
Totally
and Twitter.
trademarked by Ramadan Radio.
So, Charmaine, we were just while you was off for a
Yeah, I
minute.
apologize for that. I think my connection was a bit unstable.
I think no. Sometimes when that happens, it happens to me as well. You got to reset it again, and you're good to go. And
Back to the question. So and how would you guys engage with the youth? Because there is a lack of interest in politics from the youth. So how would you guys make us interested in the politics before it starts getting to time to vote?
Well, the policies have to matter to the youth. That's the first thing. So a lot of the policy making has to make a difference to the young people. So the problem with a lot of the policy making that's happened, in the recent years, they haven't really spoken to young people. So what are we saying about the climate? What has legitimately been done to change things like climate change? And those are the issues that matter to young people. Things like university fees. What have we done about that? No progress has been made on that. That's another issue that matters to young people. So in order to try and engage young people, the politics has to resemble them. The politics and politicians have to show that their interests and their hopes for the future matter to us. And the only way we're going to do that is by creating policy that actually changes the reality for young people. And one of the things that really sort of depresses me, I'm a millennial, so I'm not Generation X, Y.
well, hold on a second. Now, according to Abu Bakr here, he's past all of them now, and he's got a new one here called Generation
that's
Swift.
How quickly society is moving on. We have so many younger generations, and the reality is that the hopes and the aspirations of those younger generations are getting smaller and smaller because of the fact that the reality is that they will have less chance of getting a job as a graduate.
So guys, we got to move on now. Sorry if I'm going to cut you because I've got too many things to talk about here. Now we're going to go back to the textiles. Rhys, right? How many people are working in the textile industry in the Leicestershire region?
Again, I've not.
Okay, we'll skip on that.
Actually compile the report on this, so I should have that statistic to hand, but I don't.
Okay, don't worry. No, it's all right. It's all right. It is Ramadan, and the brain works a bit slower during the day, especially at this time before it's time for iftar, which is at 8:30 odd. But okay, how many textile firms are in the Leicestershire area? Anyone know? No? Okay, another 50 quid gone. Forget about that then. So how many are closed or facing closure out of the 800?
I know the answer to that one. Too many.
Too many. That won't qualify for the £50. Charmaine, do you know how many is up for closure?
Unfortunately, I don't know.
COVID has taken a big hit on all these firms. The figure is almost 300, right? And with this situation we had last year with the slave labor wages and all that, and the furlough is going to end very soon, there's going to be another further impact in this sector. Now, important thing to remember that in the city, most of these textile firms, the people who work in them and the people who own them are all from the BAME community. So this is the impact. There's going to be huge impact, social impact to the whole community, to the city, and then it has a knock-on effect to the country. So these are issues that are going to be very prevalent because any joblessness is going to create hopelessness, is going to create uselessness, right? Right, Rhys?
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a jobs-led recovery. We have to put jobs first and where the jobs are and how we're going to get those jobs. I know the governments have just announced that the East Midlands should be getting 60,000 new jobs over the next kind of couple of years, 3 or 4 years. And that's actually thanks to Brexit. But we've got to make sure that we are making as many jobs in our local area for as many people as possible, because that is the only way that we prosper. And that surely should be the target for the city.
Now, this is going to have to be a complete collective effort where everybody, regardless of color, creed, race, religion, culture, tradition, and political party, and regardless of your affiliations, you're going to have to sit together and we're going to have to work on this together, right? Because the impact of this is going to be upon everybody in the community. Now, Charmaine, further challenge we have to this is that we are still in the COVID conditions. one injection, two injection, mask up, don't mask up. It's not gone away. It's going to be here. It's a new norm, Charmaine. And I'm sure your party are getting to terms with that, just as we are here at the studio every day telling people to be mindful with social distance and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is this is something that's probably not going to go away anytime soon. And whilst the vaccines have been rolled out, not everybody has been vaccinated. So we've got two issues: A, to ensure that the younger generations get vaccinated, but also to ensure take up. We've been doing everything we can on a local basis to ensure that
I'm going to go through some text messages now because we only have 5 minutes left before we close the show, right? Guys, here's some text messages for you. Most of the old school Labour councillors have become too comfortable chilling. Chilling is a word here with the young people. Is that right word, chilling?
Yep. And that politicians only come and post leaflets just before elections, then never to be seen again till the next election.
Control yourself, Abu Bakr, now. You're not a politician yet. So hardly make an effort to reach out. That's another one. And then someone has just proudly said, I'm a Labour supporter. Good luck to everybody. Councillors are letting down the community, right? That's another message. Politicians only come and post leaflets just before elections, then never to be seen again till next election. Did you post that one?
No, that was not me.
So there's more.
I think
Abu Bakr, don't tell me there's another one like you out there.
Yeah, and then it says councillors were not providing surgeries during lockdown due to restrictions. Did they still receive full pay? So that's a question.
So
yes, is that a question to me?
Both, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, they do still receive a full pay, but I'm sure you can see that our pay is public knowledge, so you can go on and see exactly what councillors actually earn. But that doesn't mean casework has stopped. So we're still contactable, we're still active in the community, but obviously we have to ensure that everybody's safe. We have to ensure we're safe, but we have to ensure that our residents are safe. We don't want to put anyone at risk by holding physical surgeries. But we are still getting casework, and actually casework has increased significantly during the COVID months and over the last year. People's problems haven't stopped because of COVID. There are still, all the normal issues that we deal with. So despite the fact that we're not holding face-to-face surgeries, we are still taking on cases from residents and actually probably doing it more so. In a weird way, it's become more efficient. Because we don't have to organize a place to meet someone. We don't have to organize a venue. We can actually have that conversation directly through virtual means, whether it's through the telephone, whether it's through Zoom. So, I mean, I would prefer it to go back face-to-face as soon as it's safely available, but that doesn't mean our work has stopped.
That's a really good idea. Now we're moving forward because this is very constructive discussions here that engage
coming on that
and come together. Now we got 2 minutes now, Rhys, so you got to be quick.
Yeah, I was just going to say actually that we made sure that last March that we put a surgery together. We don't have to do any casework at all, but we get bombarded with emails saying that the MP for Leicester East doesn't reply to casework. She doesn't reply to emails. So we had to put casework, a surgery together, and we've put 6 or 7 surgeries together now for the people of Leicester. And they are very, very heavily attended.
Right, guys. Right. What I'm going to say now is that both of you are very inspirational. You got a great future ahead.
A lot of passion.
And this is what we need: commitment, dedication, and definitely both of you are going to go very far in your political careers. Definitely, because you're both switched on. Very passionate, and I'm very happy. I'm extremely happy to have you here on the Radio Ramadan, and you have really instilled some positive energy into us here today, guys. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having us,
Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
And Charmaine, you've got a 2-year experience now, and let's see how you get on. We're going to be fully praying for both of you during this month of Ramadan, and also, we must all not forget that all the brothers and sisters over the other side of the world in India who are losing their lives like you cannot imagine. So don't forget them in your prayers. And a lot of them terrible COVID conditions over there. So guys, we look forward to engaging with you. Not next year Ramadan, but I think we should all get together sooner and do a bigger meeting with a lot of these young people. Abu Bakr, what do you say about that?
I can't wait. I got more questions.
Come armed with more questions, Abu Bakr.
So if you guys are all right, I'm going to connect you with Abu Bakr by email, and he can ask you all the questions that he wants, right? So guys, thank you very much again. Rhys?
Thank you.
No doubt we'll touch base again.
I'm sure we will. I look forward to it.
With both of you, and time has just flown by. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and we shall be back next week at the same time. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much.